Hi there! Some of you might remember a few years ago we did a head-to-head where we had a Bentley Mulsanne versus a Mercedes-Benz S65 AMG. To refresh your memory, the Bentley won. However, at the time, there weren't any Maybachs because Maybach was out of production. See, the economy was tanking and Mercedes killed it dead. The economy is doing a lot better, so for 2015, they've brought Maybach back, specifically the new Mercedes-Maybach S600. As you can see, it is a big, long, sexy, shiny luxury limousine. To go up against it, we've brought back the Bentley Mulsanne. However, this is no ordinary Mulsanne. This is the new Mulsanne Speed. And as you're probably guessing, Speed stands for more power. Specifically torque. Specifically, this guy makes 811 pound-feet of the stuff. Once again, we also asked Rolls-Royce if they would like to play. Could we have a Phantom? And once again, they said no. A Rolls-Royce does not compete with any other car. A Rolls-Royce is more akin to a private jet or a yacht. So I can do this head-to-head very simply. I would much rather have my own jet or a big boat than the Phantom here. As for the Mulsanne versus Maybach, which one is the ultimate Uber luxury machine? There's exactly one way to find out. This is the manliest thing I've ever done in my life. Driving the Maybach, what is it like? Well, it's not that exciting. And it's not supposed to be that exciting. I mean, again, this is one of those cars built around the rear seat. This is for driving people. That said, my biggest takeaway driving this car is just kind of how serene it is. I mean, it's almost like this isolation chamber. It's a very smooth ride, even on a relatively choppy road like this one. It's also quiet. Now, they claim it's the quietest production car on the market. It's got great pickup, it's got good brakes, the suspension's really smart. Not a sports car by any means, but if you have to hustle it, you can. Calling it fun to drive, it's a stretch, but again, the capabilities are impressive. The Bentley Mulsanne Speed, or as they should have called it, the Bentley Mulsanne Torque, because that's really all this thing is. For such a huge car, it's surprisingly fun to drive. It's not as isolated from everything as the Maybach is, but it feels much sportier. There is something to be said, though, for the heavy, leaden way this car goes down the road. It's a wonderful compromise between comfort and sport. Of course, what I'm really here for is to be driven. Before we get inside the cars, I want to talk a bit about the design of these two, because the way they look is going to factor into the ultimate decision. With the Mulsanne, they decided to reach back into their heritage, and what is there on an old car that you could possibly put on a modern car? Big headlights. I also like this character line that kind of runs the entire length of the car down the haunches. I love the 5-spoke wheels. Okay, they could be on a Camaro, but I think they're cool. And I absolutely love the classic pinched British rear end. As for the Maybach, well, the car is very long. Again, the wheelbase is just 2 inches longer than the Mulsanne, but it just looks so expansive. What a lot of people are finding controversial about the Maybach are the wheels. And again, these are $5,000 optional wheels, and they look pre-war. This is what you might see on like a 1928 Maybach. I wasn't so into them at first, but in person, they kind of work. They make the vehicle pop. They make it seem more expensive, more luxurious. As for the rest of the design, it's pretty good. It's not, to me, as athletic looking as the Bentley, though I don't think it's supposed to be. Hey, excuse. Excuse me. Dozed off there because you're probably wondering, what is it like to ride around in the back of a Maybach? Well, pretty relaxing, I gotta tell you. You're isolated, you're apart from the road. It's not quite a sensory deprivation tank, but it's not that far off. I mean, there are bumps. I'm not really feeling them, even though I'm basically sitting on the rear axle. It's just a very smooth, buttery car. I wouldn't be shocked if I found out that there was actually a way to squirt like buttered foie gras into the dampers when this thing's in comfort mode. It's that smooth back here. However, no car is perfect. Yes, everything is covered in leather, but if you put your hand through the handle, plastic? In a Maybach? End of the world? Not even kinda, but we're talking about the upper stratosphere of luxury mobiles. That said, I could get back to this nap. Thank you, Skeeves. Hey, Skeeves. Now I'm in the back of the Bentley. It's quite different than the Maybach in one major way, and that is the Maybach is much closer to a first-class airplane seat, whereas this is just a really nice car. Strange philosophical question, but do you want your car to be more like an airplane or a car? I'm not sure how to answer that. I will say this, everything is leather or metal. It takes the skin from 17 cows to wrap the interior of a Mulsanne, which is sort of disgusting if you stop and think about it, which we won't. Another thing this car does, which I like, is everything is hidden. Most of the things in the Maybach can be hidden, but in this, it's just all hidden. There's little cubby holes and buttons and places to release all this stuff, but if you don't want to see it, you don't have to see anything. It's not knock you out cold, sound asleep, relaxing the way the Maybach is, because I'm not lying in a bed, but man, I can just sit here and think about nothing except leather. As for the way it rides, it's not as buttery smooth as the Maybach is, but it's a very relaxing, comfortable, quiet space to be in. As much fun as it is to be chauffeured around softly and gently in the back of these things, I've mentioned that each car contains a super powerful monster motor. I mean, the weakest one here has I think I've detected a flaw with the Bentley, and that is there isn't a one-touch shade and window down. You've actually got to push the button twice, whereas you can pop the tray here out with just one touch. Anyways, the weakest one here makes 612 pound-feet of torque. It would be an absolute shame not to open them up and see what they do. 811 pound-feet of torque, but it's also got 530 horsepower. That means this thing scoots. Not only that, but it grips like crazy. I mean, it's just amazing a car this big can move like that. And again, it weighs 3 tons. This is a Bentley. It's supposed to feel like this. It's supposed to go like this. That said, I should probably put my tray table up before Ralph Nader has a coronary, because this is like solid metal, just like right within braining position. Each of these cars is dripping with technology. We could do an entire video about all the gadgets and doodads found in the back seats, but I think it's going to come down to something I like to call champagne solutions. And let me show you what I mean. Let's pretend we're on a road trip. I, of course, would be buckled up, and I realize, my Lord, I haven't had champagne in 15 minutes. What's an oligarch to do? Well, here in my Fortress of Solitude, I would kind of awkwardly roll onto my side, pull this down, voila, my Maybach branded solid silver champagne flutes, which come from a jeweler and cost about $5,000 for the set. Now, if I had it on my TV tray, as we saw, I would just slide right off. Luckily, Mercedes has come up with a very German solution. Of course, you need champagne to put in your champagne flute, so if I even more awkwardly hork myself over, reach back here, voila. I got a fridge and it holds 3 bottles of champagne, which is pretty good except for one thing, and that is this. Let's say you have a lot of stuff you have to take with you. After all, the rich are getting richer. Their mini fridge takes up a lot of trunk space. Now, it does come out, and there is this tacky plastic cover that'll go over where the hole is, but let's check out Bentley's champagne solution. And just like on the Maybach, I have to sort of twist over, although it's really not that bad because odds are I have this down because it's my armrest. And then I simply hit this one button. If there's a cooler trick in the car world, I want to see it. I mean, look at that. True, they're not solid silver, but they are crystal champagne flutes, and the base is in the shape of the Speed wheels. There's even a little B in the center. We don't have the Maybach's crazy metal locking flute base, but the holder we do have is pretty good. Besides, if you're being chauffeured around, tell the guy not to drive like a maniac. Now, we only have 2 bottles of champagne that fit in the fridge here, but there are 3 glasses. That means if your friend's got a friend, maybe sitting on your friend's lap, all 3 of you can have a drink, and while you only have 2 bottles of champagne, at that point, how long do you want to stay in the car? This is a hand-rolled cigar. And what that means is, in addition to the guy or gal who rolls the entire thing by hand, the tobacco is picked by hand, it's sorted by hand. Once the cigar is rolled, it's selected by hand, it's even boxed by hand. They say that before the consumer gets a hold of it, 250 sets of hands go into the production of a cigar like this. And they're not cheap either. This particular stick costs about 10, maybe 12 bucks, and they go way up from there. Now, you can buy machine-made cigars. In addition to being rolled by a machine, the tobacco's harvested by a machine, some kind of laser robot sorts them out by color, and then they're boxed going down an assembly line. They're much less expensive. They start at under $1. A good one's gonna cost you 3, 4, maybe 5 bucks. And, you know, they taste pretty good. But can a machine-made cigar ever be as fine as a hand-rolled one? The Mercedes Maybach S600 is about as good as an ultra-luxury vehicle can get. However, the winner of this head-to-head is the Bentley Mulsanne Speed. Cheers. By the way, this fruit gag, total failure. It's just all on my feet. I got a burp. Okay. Sorry, I drank that Red Bull, you know? Anyways, here. Okay. And that is this. The mini fridge takes up this is gonna be the best part. Okay, I think I have to burp again. This is very embarrassing.